I was attracted to the production of Bestseller because I am actually a writer as well, and I thought it would be very interesting to tackle a role where I was sort of playing a character that I knew a lot about. But there's also a lot of things about the play that I thought were quite interesting separate from that. I love how all of the stories come to life, and we are seeing them spring up right before our eyes, which I think is a very interesting thing. And it's also always wonderful to work on a new play that's never been done before, so that we are kind of finding it out as we go along and figuring out how to do it. It's never been done before, so we have to figure it out.
I was attracted to Bestseller. First of all, I've worked at this theater before, and I love ICT, so I was more than happy to come back. I was excited to come back. But similarly, I love working on new plays. It's always really exciting to be the first to discover the character and how they work and how they operate. And really, I was attracted to the size of the characters in this show. They seem like these really kind of standard archetypes and stereotypes, but there's still a lot of depth and a lot of layers to them, which has been a lot of fun to play around with and find that balance in rehearsal.
I was really excited to come down and work with ICT because I've never been here before, so I was really happy to get to be in the theater. And then I love those very verbose, very talky, heady, funny British plays, and so getting to like dig into that with 4 other people for 90 pages is like, that's just the most fun. So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, I was really attracted to this show, Bestseller, as well because it's a world premiere, and also because I'm an actor and a writer at the same time, and that artsy angst kind of lives inside of me, so it felt like something that I could grab onto. Also, yeah, this world that we create is so intricate and layered and exciting and surprising, and yeah, I had a great time reading it for the first time, and I was super excited to dive in.
Tell me about the start of the play. Why are these 3 writers at this isolated cottage?
Actually, yeah.
Well, they're here because I've invited them. I have read all of their work. I'm a voracious reader, and so I read everything that crosses my path, and I love encouraging people, even if they're terrible writers. I love to encourage them and help solve their writer's block and deal with their different processes and their different challenges in each thing that they're doing.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think it's interesting that each character is here for a completely different reason. I mean, they're all there to work on either to start something or to finish something or, pick something back up again, but also the personal reasons that they come. I mean, my character is constantly engaged, and so I think that to men that she's not totally crazy about. So I think a lot of her motivation for coming is to just get away from all those men. And spend time with my girlfriend and go for runs around the lake and do my writing and not have to be brushing men off me all the time. So, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, well, and also in the entertainment industry, it's often hard. Thank you. It's hard. This feels weird now. You see directors work with people all the time because I think doing art is hard, right? The rules change every new project that you do. So these people, for the most part, except for Alex, know each other, right? So I think there's something that you latch onto as an artist and a creator when you find a group of people that like compliment you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I might have. Maybe do
you have an answer?
Well, I think specifically it's a little bit different for my character because I come into the show, every time we run it, I have to be as open as possible to learn about all of their characters for the very first time, every single day, over and over again. So it's really exciting to come in and learn about their little human tics and the intricacies and all of that fun stuff over and over and over again, and actually learn why each of these people are here and how they got there. And yeah, it's really exciting, and I love doing it with these people every day. Every day.
Well, to that point, tell us about your characters in the play and your story arcs.
I play Maureen, and she's the host of the of these writers' gatherings. And I've been hosting lots of writers for about 15 years at least in this house. I first came here with my husband, Charles, who 5 years ago disappeared mysteriously. And we don't know what happened to him exactly, but he's gone. And we hear what she tells Alex as her explanation, but it isn't necessarily the same story they've heard, because she likes telling stories. So there's a bit of mystery to her, which makes her quite interesting. And she's not herself a writer, but loves writers, loves words, loves saying them and listening to them and discovering the stories, and loves helping those who need a little assistance along the way. She's kind of the mother to all of them. I
play Shelley. She is an erotic fiction romance writer, novelist. I even say myself that everything I write is garbage and it's total trash, but people love it, so I keep writing it, and I enjoy writing it. I think she's actually probably a very good writer. If she really wanted to, she could churn out a really great novel, because she's smart and she's witty and she has a very interesting view of the world. But I think in her mind, it's okay to have fun, and it's okay to be a little, what's the word, like flippant, and it's okay to tease and poke fun, and not everything has to be taken so seriously, which is a nice contrast to this guy, which you'll hear about in a second. But yeah, she's engaged quite regularly, and she uses that as inspiration for her novels, and she becomes very interested in the new meat that comes to the writer's retreat. So she's been a lot of fun. It's not normally the type of character I get to play, so it's been great.
I play Damien. He's a really cool, handsome, attractive, sexy. I play Damien, and he's like I think Jane's initial take on Damien was like a walking dumpster person. And he's not nearly as successful as Shelley, who would be his specific competition. And so at the beginning of the play, he's just, Damien's like viciously trying to get clicked into getting his next novel and making it great, and when Alex comes on the scene and Alex has some success too, it's really that, that sort of by hook or by crook getting ahead in your career, and your inspiration. And then I think by the end of the play, Damien learns a little bit about he learns a little bit himself about writing in his interactions with Alex, and he sort of goes off on his own way, gets a brand new idea. So I think he's a little bit more settled at the end of the show.
If you call writing horror children's books settled.
It's a fantastic idea.
It is a fantastic
It
idea,
is.
actually.
I play Alex. I'm the newest member of this crazy, wacky house. When I walk in, he's a very young writer. He's coming off of a pretty successful first book, and he's having to deal with what a lot of artists have to deal with. Will there ever be another success? And can I top my last success? And throughout the play, he learns from these much more seasoned and established writers how to, make a lasting career and how to continue on and keep making art. And it's a really fun character to play. It's a really fun character to listen to all the other characters and react to their actual insanity, because in comparison, he's pretty tame. But yeah, and I really enjoy where he ends up going towards the end of the play.
Can you tell us more about the Landlady, the Writer's Retreat, and the interesting cottage?
Yes, well, it's host to all kinds of different writers. She tries to put them where they're in the rooms that are appropriate for them, so she puts the dark and tormented Damien down in the basement with the mice. And she puts the newbie here, first getting his first introduction to a writer's retreat, up in the loft, looking down over everyone. And Shelley somewhere in between, I'm not even sure where she's
sandwiched between the two men.
She's sandwiched between the two men, yes. It's wide open countryside in England. There's a lake nearby that Shelley goes jogging around, and she tries to take the boys with her, although they're really not quite up to the task of all of that fresh air. And Maureen doesn't go around the lake anymore because that's where Charles, her husband, disappeared all those years ago. And she's not really sure what happened.
What is unique about performing at the ICT Theater in Long Beach?
One of the things that's unique about working at ICT is that it's a fairly big space. A lot of the theaters that we work in up in Los Angeles are smaller spaces, although I've worked fairly recently in some huge spaces, so it's kind of a medium-sized thing. But we have to work to fill it and reach all the performers back there. It's a beautiful space. It's really quite lovely. I'm really looking forward. I can't wait to see what the set looks like. And once we get in there, we did a walkthrough of it at the beginning of this week, and got a sense of what the space is like. But Alex can tell you a little bit more about working in the space because she's the only one among us who has before. So I'll let her do it.
One of the things I love about working at ICT is, yes, the space is beautiful, and the construction of it is lovely for the voice, and even just like the way your energy carries because of the way just the audience is set up. But one of the things I have found in working here twice is that everyone who's involved, I feel, is very invested in making sure that you, the actor, that you have what you need in order to do your best performance. And I think ultimately all theaters strive to do that, but I found that to be incredibly unique and specific to ICT, where I can say, this is a silly example, but I really think I want to have glasses and I want to have this kind of costume piece, and can I get like this specific kind of prop? And it's always, yes, whatever you need, we'll get that for you. And sometimes you get pushback with that, but I feel like they give a lot of trust. They put a lot of their trust into us as actors, which is nice because then we get to do our job in the best way we can, but also we get to have more say in the creation of these characters, which is lovely.
Yeah. So, similar to most of us, I haven't performed here at ICT yet, but one thing that I thought was an amazing feature of the stage and the audience that we were able to walk through a couple of days ago is that it's set up in a thrust position, which is something that not a lot of Los Angeles theaters have. So as an audience member, I'm really excited to see a show here eventually because you feel like you're right in the play. It wraps around the whole stage. So while we're on stage and while we're acting, you'll feel like you're in the house with us. Mm-hmm. And for our show specifically, we also have aspects that come out into the audience. It's almost interactive. Mm-hmm. So that's something that I'm super excited to see people see when they come and watch the show.
A written play all about writing. Tell me how this differs from other plays and stories about the writing process.
A written play about writing. It does seem a little circuitous, doesn't it? It's interesting because writing itself is such an interior process. Robert Heinlein said, there's nothing to be ashamed of about writing. Just do it in private and wash your hands afterwards.
Oh my gosh.
And so it's kind of an interesting challenge to be dealing with something that is about writing. Obviously, the writer put a lot of things about writing in it. We talk about writer's block quite a lot in it. We talk about the process of how much of your own life you can use in what you're writing that's not going to freak out your family and friends because they're suddenly being, Shelley's character uses, she gets engaged to all of these men just so she can write about them and use them as her inspirations, yes, her favios. So we spend a lot of time talking about the process of it, which I think is endlessly interesting, but that's what you generally do at a writer's retreat. You spend a lot of time talking about the writing process. But anybody else?
Me first. It's really interesting because the show, you stop it. This is what most of our rehearsals.
This is all of our rehearsals are.
The show I just finished was Collected Stories by Donald Margulies, which is also all about writers. It's a two-hander. It's a young writer and her mentor who's published and very popular writer. And so it was interesting going from that show where we talk all about writing to this show. But I think one of the main differences, other than tone, because that show is a drama and this is, fun comedy, is that we get to see the stories come to life, and we get to see how we're inspiring each other in the stories that come to life. So things we mention in conversation at dinner, 5 minutes later, the audience gets to see that same thing mentioned in someone's story. So you can start to see the connective threads of how people take a piece of inspiration from each other or from the lake or from the cottage and how it directly ends up in their stories, which I think is really fun. And I'm still catching things. I hear stuff in the stories and I'm like, oh, that's from, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Go ahead now, go ahead.
And it's interesting, there's a lot of stuff Peter's doing in terms of theming with the importance of the art. Most times in a story about creating art, when the art gets created, it's like a big explosive, thing, and very often, it's well received, and it's a big deal when you finally finish. And that's not what this play is about. This play is about the other 90% of the time for writers. When you're walking in, I think it's Shelley's line, and I've heard other real life writers say it as well. It's like you sit down and you work like a farmer. And you put your hours in, and most of the time nothing comes through. So the play's so much more about the characters' interactions and a little bit about the comic mundanity of the day-to-day life of a writer, as opposed to the
That's a good point.
explosive creative process that we're all used to as an audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you have to say on the subject?
I think something that Alex brought up with the tone of the play, I don't know about you guys, but I've seen a lot of shows about writers and about the artistic process that are just angst upon angst upon angst, and this show is just so much fun. It's a big, enormous, raucous comedy, like laugh out loud, gut-busting comedy, and you don't see a lot of shows about the very personal, intimate process of writing that also are incredibly laugh out loud funny and entertaining. So that's something that I felt was different about this show.
That's true.
When the last word of dialogue in your play ends, what do you want the audience to take from it?
Well, the last line is, "Don't forget to write," which is a play on the, you're going on vacation and don't forget to write. But it's something that writers themselves have to remember all the time. Don't forget to write. I say much earlier in the play, I remind Alex that, Alex the character, not Alex the actress, that right now the important thing is not that what you put down on the page be great, but that it be down on the page at all. And that's really one of the things that's most important about writing is just getting it down on the page in the first place. Then you can make it pretty.
Yeah, I love the final line, "Don't forget to write," and I also love the final image, which I'm not going to give away. I think,
Oh, that's smart, because I was going to give
don't
it
give it away. Don't give it away.
That's a great idea.
But I think that this ending, that I'm not going to give away, makes the show in tone slightly different. I think in the beginning it's like what Eric was saying. It's laugh out loud, funny, and then at the end we have this. I think we have this ending that just slightly shifts the play into a more not realistic, but a more sentimental tone that I really like. And for me, it makes the play more about the relationships. And yes, it's about the writing process, but for me, it's more about the bond that these people have created. Like you were saying earlier about finding your artistic kind of tribe. So, yeah. Community, I guess that's what I hope people take away from it. Don't give it away.
I think I was going to. I'm so glad you saved me. I think also just speaking of that image that we won't give away, it's that thing again of you just never know when something's going to click as a creative person. You just spend so much time failing and failing and failing and failing, and then one day that is no different from any other day, it changes. So I hope people can walk away with a little bit of that uplift or a little bit of that understanding about the creative process.
Yeah, I think I agree with pretty much what everyone said. With Wendy, I agree that it's kind of that just do it mentality. You just got to get out there and just make it happen. It doesn't matter if it's pretty, you just got to do it. And I also think that eventually things just strike, and I think especially with Alex, his character goes through so much throughout the play and lives so much that eventually the art just happens. And I think a good message that I get out of this play doing it every day is that you just gotta live. You gotta live life, and the art will come probably if you continue interacting with people and growing with people and creating meaningful relationships with people and learning from your peers and colleagues, and that's how magic happens.
Being the world premiere of the comedy, there is pressure. There's pressure. We're figuring it out, and it's a lot easier to figure it out when you have some kind of baseline. So it's fun. We're having a great time, but you got to really enjoy that free fall of like, I have no idea. Let's throw this at the wall and see what sticks. And like, you really got to follow your instincts. But the pressure is definitely on. The pressure is on.
The pressure is definitely on. Because Peter obviously is a writer. It's a show about writers. Mm-hmm. I feel like now that we are playing writers, we understand even more so the importance of these words and the hours put in, and not even hours, the months and the years put in. So I always just feel such an obligation and responsibility to the playwright to begin with, but now knowing that we're the first to do it, it's like, oh, please just like the show, please. And normally, you're right, there's some sort of like template, that you can look at, or where the jokes are, how something's supposed to land. And I think we're still finding those jokes, which is exciting because every day in rehearsal there's something new to laugh at. But there's pressure to that too, at least for me. It's like, I don't want to go into opening night feeling like I've lost or haven't found a moment yet.
I think one of the challenges of doing something that's never been done before are demanding. But it's also freeing because we can figure it out and we're not trying to follow what somebody else has done with it. We may not be doing what the writer had in mind, but I don't know that we ever are. But we're not trying to match something that somebody else has done. We're trying to create it on our own and come up with these characters on our own and figure it out for what works with us. And whenever you're doing a work, even if it's not a new piece, you've got all of the actors that you're working with, and all of these people are all really, this is a great cast. And they each bring themselves to the characters that they're creating. It was enormous fun the first time we read it through. Mm-hmm. And I suddenly heard how each of you were doing these characters, and I went, oh, this is fun. And that's always the fun thing, whether it's a new play or not.
Yeah, it's challenging doing a world premiere show. I think it's specifically challenging doing a world premiere comedy because no audience has ever laughed at this before.
And hopefully they will now.
Right, and you have to really trust the playwright, and you have to trust the first time that we read it through that the laughs that we had were genuine, and remembering, oh, this was funny the first time we read it. This was funny the first time that we heard it. So maybe other people will think it's funny the first time they hear it. And I think that, and trusting the fact that we're working with incredibly talented actors, and we have an incredibly talented director, Jane Page, and we're really, really working on such incredible words that Peter came up with. And trust comes into play when doing a world premiere, for sure.
You go. You sort of.
But I think all of this I just hit the mic, I'm so sorry. Because you maybe. But this also, though, I think it just made me have a good thought, which is that I think the goal is to always approach every play or every, piece of text, even if it's Shakespeare and it's been done for hundreds and hundreds of years, to approach it with the same eye as we do new work. We have to always think that it's never been done before because we've never done it before. We've never done it with this cast in this space. That you're right, that does give you a lot of freedom versus going into something with some preconceived notion of how it's supposed to be. There are a lot of plays I've seen, especially something like classical work where it's done often, where you're like, it's always done that way, but there's nothing in the text that makes it need to be done that way, other than that's how people have done it in the past. So okay, now it's your turn.
I was just going to say, to Eric's point, doing a new comedy, you hit that point 3 weeks in where you've said the jokes 100 times, and you sort of lose your barometer.
Yeah.
And you're like, I hope this is funny. You know what I mean? But I mean, it's going to be funny.
Yeah.
It's going to be
It's
funny.
going to be funny.
It's gonna be funny,
It's going to be
guys.
very funny.
It's gonna be funny.
One of my favorite things to do when I'm working on a comedy is to try to make a bet with myself as to what our first laugh will be.
Oh, that's great.
I'm not always right.
You make a bet, I'll put $5 in the pot.
I'll put 5 in the pot.
So last question. Tell us why the Southern California community should go see Bestseller at the ICT Theater in Long Beach.
The Southern California community should come and see Bestseller at ICT because it is the first time it will ever be seen anywhere, and they will be part of the process of bringing it to life because all of the work that we're doing right now in rehearsals is just the beginning. It doesn't really come to life until we have an audience out there, and we do find out where the laughs are and where the reactions are and where the fun stuff is. We need that audience. We need those people out there to help us finish bringing this to life, making it the world premiere.
Because I think it's a comedy with a lot of heart, a lot of sentimentality, and a really strong, intelligent backbone. And that's a winning combination, in my opinion.
It will be a delightful romp.
I think it's going to be so much fun. It's so lighthearted and optimistic, and we all need that right now. And similar to what Wendy said, every single day of this world premiere is going to be completely different. We're going to be changing and modifying things. If you come during previews, we're going to be literally modifying things depending on where you laugh. So you'll just be another director in the audience. It'll be great.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you.